First of all, we just want to thank God. Thank the force of the universe for the grace of today and the day that we have seen. And we recognize that it is not just a moment, it is indeed a movement. In America now, if we're going to have real progress, one of the things we have to have is state-based movements that have national implications, that are rooted in our deepest moral principles, our deepest constitutional principles, that are agenda-based and not so much personality-based, that are led by indigenous people from the ground up, who form in this 21st century a new kind of fusion politics that brings us together. A picture, in this sense, is worth more than 80,000 words. The estimates today from those who do it, I don't do it, said we had upwards to 80 to 100,000 people. I'll let others wrestle with that, but what I know is that you answered the questions of who we are. We are black and white and Latino and Native American. We are Democrat and Republican and independent and people of faith and people not of faith but who believe in a moral universe. We are natives and immigrants and business leaders and workers and unemployed and doctors and uninsured and people with insurance marching for those who don't have it. We're gay and we're straight, students and retirees and parents. And we have come to witness against our current state government's leadership the extremist attacks on the most vulnerable and our most sacred democratic principles, or the principles of our democracy. You can see from today that there is a hunger for higher ground. There is a hunger for language that is not limited by liberal versus conservative, or Democrat versus Republican, but a language that allows people to be more even, to dig deeper into their humanity, to get beyond just the talking heads and the pundits, and to really ask the question, what are our deepest moral values that grow out of our faith? Since we use the Bible whenever people swear to hold office, and we open all of our legislative sessions with prayer, ought we not pay attention to the major tenets of the Bible? Whether it be from the Jewish tradition, the Christian tradition, or others, and justice is at the center of that. How you treat the least of these, how you treat the most vulnerable. It's not so much about personal, individual morality, that's between you, your priest, and your God, but public morality has to deal with those issues of justice and fairness and equality. In fact, Jesus in my faith tradition says, if you do all the other things but leave justice and mercy and love, you have actually left undone the more weightier matter. The night before last, I was with a group of more than 300 people of faith, Baha'i, Sikh, Muslims, Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, in one room, Dr. Spearman. They were organizing for this rally, and we all, in that moment, agreed that in all of our faith traditions, the highest principle, the highest guide for public work is love and justice. I was in another place where there were people who came up and said, listen, we don't necessarily profess faith, we're secularists, but we do believe deeply in the strong moral provisions in our constitutional documents. And so it is really time for state-based movements that have national implications, that call people together rather than isolate people around these deepest moral values. That's why in 16 cities before we got here, we were in Brevard, for instance, this 98% white, 89% Republican, and 750 people showed up. Mostly, many of them Republicans. We weren't talking about Republicans or Democrats. What we were talking about is you don't kick people when they're down.
Yes.
You don't take people's Medicaid just because you can. You don't deny people's unemployment. You don't mess with voting rights.
That's right.
And then we went at Rocky Mount. More than 1,000 people showed up. What some would call a more heavily Democratic county, but it didn't matter because that wasn't what we were talking about. What we're challenging is extremism that takes us down the road to destruction, destroys the very soul and the fabric of our state and country, rather than the pathway of higher ground. I kept looking today at our grand marshals.
All right.
It's all right.
And I looked at my mother.
That's right. It's all right.
God is so good.
And I thought about the attacks on voting rights and public education.
Mercy.
And as I was speaking, I thought about what Mary Perry must have seen over 85 years.
Yes, sir.
And I thought about what Rosanelle Eaton must have seen over 19 years. And the story she told, 92 years, of how she had to read the preamble of the Constitution, recite it from memory to probably somebody who couldn't read it themselves. And I thought about how Miss Coleman shows me courage every day. How long before I was born she traveled all over this state.
Jesus.
How she was arrested at 15, fighting for rights. And how she even went down to Louisiana when they were trying to run an extremist named David Duke. And then Miss Coleman told me before the day, she said, Barbara, I was there at the Edmonds Pettus Bridge. And then I looked at my mother, who's 80 years old, who goes to work every day at the school that she desegregated.
Bless the Lord.
And how when they came to this state in '67 and brought me their only child, knowing I would have to be put in a segregated kindergarten in first grade, and her and my father, who went on to glory now, fought and was a part of opening up public school. Because the schools in North Carolina had still not desegregated nearly 14 years after Brown. In fact, it took 19 years, 1970, 71. And I said, these people and women and others have given so much. And that's why it's so wrong for extremists
So wrong.
Take it away.
Yes.
to take it away. And regardless of party, Abraham Lincoln said, sometimes you got to lean in and listen to the better angels. The better angels. And so this kind of fusion politics, Irv, was what helped us move forward right after slavery. It was this kind of fusion politics that grabbed the heart and soul of the nation in the 1950s and 60s and moved us forward. And it is again today, this kind of coalition, where we have those 5 fundamental demands: economic sustainability, and addressing poverty with pro-labor and pro-workers policies. 2, providing well-funded, constitutional, quality public education for every child. 3, promoting health care for all, including affordable access to the Affordable Health Care Act, expansion of Medicaid, women's health, and environmental justice in every community. 4, continuing to address the continuing disparities in the criminal justice system based on race, class, and income. And then we must defend and we must expand voting rights and women's rights and LGBT rights and immigrant rights. And we can never go down or move away from that fundamental constitutional principle: equal protection under the law for every citizen. And so today, as I said, a picture speaks 80,000 words. There's not much more than I can say simply except to say, this was just the beginning.
Just the beginning. Just the beginning.
Make no mistake, we did not do this to then just go home. As Fannie Lou Hamer said, we didn't come this far for no 3 seats. We didn't come from all over North Carolina to accept anything better than a better state and better public policy. And so we will go back to our communities. We go back on the road next week and continue moral Mondays across this state on the 17th. We go back. We will motivate everyone to come to the polls. We will maintain our fight against voter suppression. We will maximize the ingenuity and the intelligence and energy of our students as they form the moral freedom summer movement 50 years after Freedom Summer. And young people take their rightful place. Their rightful place in moving this state forward. We will make every effort in the courts to stop this voter suppression bill that is a crime against democracy, that was passed by Senator Speaker Tillis and Berger and their followers and signed by Governor McCord. We will push to ensure that Section 4 of the Voting Rights Act is properly done, is strengthened and amendment in the current bills before the Congress to include southern states that have been included before, like North Carolina and Alabama and South Carolina. We didn't come this far for no 3 seats. We will move every obstacle that could keep people from voting. And we call on all people of goodwill, regardless of your party, your color, your creed, to join us, being the trumpets of conscience, to rising above the lowlands of division and standing together, hand in hand, for a better way. We've seen it happen before.
Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
That's why today I called out those persons who happened to be Republican, who joined with Democrats and did some of the most progressive things this country has ever seen. But this time, it's not about party. It's about principle. And it's about how public policy impacts the lives of everyday people. And as the sun blessed us today,
Yes, sir.
let us not remember, when you wonder why we do what we do morally, the words of Isaiah 2,600 years ago, when in the middle of a time of political extremism and oppression, God told Isaiah to tell those who believed in a better way, shout like a trumpet.
Yes, sir.
Let your voices be heard. You want to know what kind of religion I like? You want to know what kind of faith and fast I like? You think it is merely to go through the ritual? No. This is the kind of fast that I like. Stop exploiting workers. Treat people right. Lift up the poor. Care for the vulnerable. And if you do this, North Carolina, if you do this, America, then the light will shine upon you.
Yes.
Then
And
I will answer your prayers. And then you shall be called repairers of the breach. I want to ask a few of our visitors to come and say why they have come to this event and why they see North Carolina as a national, a state action with national implications. And after that, we will take questions. You have their names?
I do.
Okay.
All right. First, we have Randy Weingarten from the American Federation of Teachers, the president of AFT, to speak to us. Randy, are you up here?
Right next to you.
Right. Oh, you are. I'm blocking you. Please.
I don't quite, for someone who is normally not without words, the character is about principle. Principle is about character. And that is always about how we treat others. And we are taught, whatever religious or non-religious sect we may be in, we are taught to treat people as we would want ourselves to be treated. And as Reverend Barber said, in state after state after state, states' actions have national consequences. And what we've seen since the onset of the greatest recession since the Great Depression is a fork in the road. That fork in the road has been one that we also saw 50, maybe 75, 80 years ago as well, which is when you have that fork in the road, there are two ways to go. The virtuous way, the way with character, the way with soul, the way where we would treat others as we would want ourselves to be treated, or the way we've seen in Florida, in Wisconsin, in Indiana, in Ohio, Michigan, and maybe more than in any other place in North Carolina.
That's right.
A state that knows how to be progressive, a state that knows how to lift up, a state that knows how to fight poverty and desegregation, how to create the ladders on the rung of economic opportunity, economic sustainability. And in a moment, between 08 and 10, that was snuffed right out. Those of us outside saw that and despaired until we got to know who was behind us and who was on that street today. Because again, whatever sect we are from, despair begets motivation, begets inspiration for a better life. And that's why the national leaders are here and will follow in the footsteps of the North Carolinians, because we are on that path to justice, on a path to helping the most vulnerable, on a path to helping educate all of God's children, on a path to helping create economic sustainability and an anchor of democracy, which requires the fight against voter suppression. So we are with you. We are your shepherd. We are your servant. We are your soldiers, here and everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy. Next, we'll have Reverend Peter Morales, the head of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Excuse me.
Last night I was at the UU Fellowship in Raleigh that had to do something that it's not used to doing. It had to put out a message to Unitarian Universalists in the area not to come to that evening because it was already standing room only, and there was no place to park in the neighborhood. And one of my colleagues who was there, long retired, Reverend Clark Olson had answered the call to Selma in '65. He was standing next to Jim Reeb when he was killed. So we're in here, Unitarian Universalists. There are 27 ministers in this state. They called us to come. I don't know how many of them have already been arrested, have been part of this movement. They issued a national call. I think we have about 1,500 Unitarian Universalists. I've never been more proud to be you. This is about human dignity, a core value. Our first principle is around the inherent worth and dignity of all people. So I want to say that, I'm proud to say that we were there, in the civil rights movement. We're here now. We're in it for the long haul. Why am I here? I'm here because if I couldn't answer this call, I should take off this stole and hang it up. Thank you.
Now we'll have Reverend Jeffrey Black, President of the United Church of Christ.
Well, good afternoon, friends. First of all, it is a joy to be here and to see all of you and to have seen all that we saw and heard this morning. It is inspirational. It gives us energy for the struggle ahead. So I didn't realize when I was coming that part of the reason that I am here is to get my batteries charged and to get the edge resharpened. So, Brother Barber, thank you for all of your organization for making this day that kind of empowering day. I'm here because I am the General Minister and President of the United Church of Christ. And I am here with two of my colleagues, national executives of the United Church of Christ, the Reverend Ben Guess and the Reverend Linda Jaramillo. Ben serves as our executive for local church ministries. Local churches are just vital to our life. And Linda serves as the executive for Justice Witness Ministries, and justice is at the core of our understanding of what the gospel calls us to do and to be. So that's why we're here. Now, my colleague Linda always talks about going places and doing something, finding out where there is fire, where there is fire, and then and going there to take wood, to put it on the fire, and make it burn some more. And I think that's another one of the reasons that we are here today, is that we saw that there was fire in North Carolina. Fire around issues that are at the core of our existence and our being and our understanding of who we are. And we wanted to bring whatever little wood, maybe just some chips or something, to this fire, okay, to help it burn brighter. Because we know what is going on around this country. We're national officers of the church. We travel here and there constantly. And what you are dealing with in North Carolina, believe me, and it's been said by others, it's not just North Carolina. And so you're doing something about it that is major, that is important. It's important for the whole. And so we wanted to be a part of that. We wanted to be a part of that, to encourage you and to be encouraged ourselves. Just this, in the last election cycle, to give you an example, one of the key issues that you're talking about is voter suppression. In Cleveland, Ohio, where our national offices are and where we reside, during that election cycle, you would go into the African American sections of town, and you'd see, and we still have African American sections of town. Okay, so you see big billboards announcing that voter fraud is a felony. And it was an outright scare tactic. And that's the kind of thing that was going on in Ohio. It was going on all over the country, though. And believe me, we're organizing and being organized, and we're joining our forces together to counter all of that. But don't you know? Don't think for a minute that all those Tea Party people weren't having a conference somewhere, doing networking, doing everything they could to have all of those different states that have been named go to this extreme position. Yeah. So we need to be as organized, more fervent, more dedicated than they can ever be. And that's what this is all about. So we come to, again, why are we here? Because we stand in solidarity and always have. The United Church of Christ, for one, as many others, have been a part of this movement. We were there during the Civil Rights Movement. Our history with this struggle goes back to the Amistad, when people were enslaved and on ships being brought here to be sold. And our institutional and denominational forebearers stood with them and fought their case all the way through the courts to freedom. So what we're saying is that we know that we have inherited a struggle that has been going on for a long, long time. But the vision of higher ground has been lifted up again for us. And in this generation, in this day, and we're working on passing it on to, until we reach that higher ground, we are committed as a church to being in this struggle. That's why we're here, and we're proud to be here with our brother Barber, and all of those who have worked so ardently with him.
Amen.
Oh, and one last thing. The United Church of Christ has a strong ecumenical partnership with the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Their general minister and president, the Reverend Sharon Watkins, was called on to be here today, and Brother Barber wanted her to be here, and she wanted me to express specifically and publicly to you, she would be here, okay? And we work together on these issues all the time together, so she would be here, and in spirit, she is here. But you know, when you have a governing board meeting that has been planned months and months in advance, and you know, that's one of those things that, you know, national executives do not play around with. We go to the meetings.
She's my general minister,
right,
at Christian Church, and she stopped at the board meeting, texted us, and had prayer for the blessings upon this march, and committed the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. We also serve as vice moderator here in the state. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Before we take questions, we're going to have two more speakers. So Pinda Hare from the Advancement Project, could you please come forward?
George. And George Gresham. Where's George? There, come on, George. Come on this side.
Thank you. I am co-director of a national civil rights organization that specializes in voting rights, Advancement Project. I know there's many from Advancement Project are in the House. We are here because we are honored to represent Rosanelle Eaton and Mary Perry and Reverend Dr. William Barber and Mrs. Coleman and the many other plaintiffs and the North Carolina NAACP who have put themselves on the line to take on the legislature and to take on this voter suppression law that is a monster law in court, in federal court. I am here because every time I step into this state, step off the airplane, or drive across the border, I know that I am on holy ground. This is a holy movement. And we at Advancement Project, we're here to serve. We're not coming with a national agenda. We understand that this is a state-led movement. So we are here to put our lawyers and our skills at the service of this movement.
And lastly, George Gresham.
Thank you. My name is George Gresham. I'm the president of 1199 SCIU, and we have 430,000 members in 5 states in the District of Columbia, and we're blessed and honored to be here. We thank Reverend Barber for the leadership that has been given us in North Carolina. You know, every day we deal with the problems of working people and the challenges that are happening all around the country, not just in North Carolina, but all around the country, that is making it more and more difficult for people to take care of their families and look out for the next generation. And they found a million different ways to divide us as a result of that. And this is a symbol of what that means to fight back. And why are we here? Is because it is so difficult to give inspiration to working people when they're constantly being battered and being oppressed and working as hard as they can and not getting very far. And what you've managed to do in North Carolina is to give hope to people, is to bring people together. It was the pleasure of me and some of my office to be a part of a few people outside of New York that were arrested on Tomorrow Monday. And when we were there, I have to tell you, you know, in our organization, because we were known as Dr. King's favorite union, and social justice is in our DNA, you know, bragging rights in our organization is how many times you've been arrested for social justice. And so I've been arrested numerous times, but I must tell you, this was the first time when I was arrested on Tomorrow Monday that it was such a diverse group of working people that were there. And so there's something very special that is happening here. It emanates from the leader, there's no question about it, Doctor. Dr. Barber is very humble about the contribution. He doesn't like to be singled out, and I agree with that. But there can't be fire without a match. Something has to light the fire, and Dr. Barber has done that. And so we are here today with 5 buses of North Carolinians, retired members. North Carolinians. So those who want to say that we are outside agitators, well, we damn sure.
Jesus used that word one time.
Okay. I only use it one time.
Go on and say it.
Well, we are darn sure agitators, but we are not outsiders. So all I can say is that on behalf of the 430,000 members of 1199, we are here to be supportive, to make sure that we are all standing up for working people, to make sure that this country, once again, is a place that welcomes and rewards hard work and dedication. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My goodness. We have others that had to get back on planes and different places. So many of our leaders. I want you to know there are more than 200 state, civil rights, labor, women, faith-based, LGBT, immigrant justice, student, and environmental groups that help make up the historic 1000 on Jones Street People's Coalition, the Forward Together Moral Movement. And that number is growing with both intensity and with focus. Thank you all so much. God bless all of you. Forward together. Forward together. Forward together. This is why we march. This is why we mobilize. This is why we march. This is why we mobilize. This is why we must vote. God bless you. Amen.